Hi, I'm John Romita Jr., and this is Previews World Weekly.
What's up, Wednesday? It's New Comic Book Day. You know, I'm just gonna, no, you know what? I'm just gonna go with it. What's up, Wednesday? It's New Comic Book Day, and welcome to Previews World Weekly. I'm one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
And I'm Barbara Gordon, and we're here every week to remind you guys to stop at a comic shop and get involved in what's happening in the world of comics.
And I have to tell you, Barbara,
Yeah.
I saw a lot of you this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not surprised,
Right.
considering where you were.
I was at New York Comic Con. And, actually, it was actually a fairly pleasant experience this year, because normally it's a bit intense. I cut you off, didn't I?
What?
Weren't you supposed to say something else after that? No? Okay, good. But
We're doing great today,
We're
guys.
doing great today. It was a long weekend.
Yeah, fair enough.
And you walk everywhere in New York. My legs are killing me.
Yep.
But at the same time, it was a positive experience.
Good.
And we're going to be able to share some of that with you guys. Hopefully in the next couple of days. Already Natasha did like a tour, which was actually really cool. She did a tour of the show floor before everybody walked in. Mm-hmm. And so it was empty. But then you start to see people flood in as she's doing more of the tour.
That's terrifying.
Which is terrifying. It is terrifying. But at the same time, it was actually kind of neat because you got to see in real time the contrast.
Yeah.
And we have some interviews coming up and a bunch of really cool stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So definitely check that out. Yeah. Also, this weekend, Watchmen debuted on HBO.
Yes, it did.
Did you get a chance to watch it at all?
I don't have HBO. So.
Oh, see, yeah. See, I didn't watch it either. Like, I got to be honest. I feel a little iffy about it. Like, the more I see about the trailers for it, I'm like, oh man, Alan Moore is right about everything. But what I did see that is somewhat comic related, I saw a movie called Into the Long Grass on Netflix. And the reason I say it's somewhat comic related because Tall Grass, I'm sorry, I'm thinking of Jurassic Park Lost World. Into the Tall Grass on Netflix. And it's Stephen King and his son Joe Hill. They produced it. And it was actually really cool. Like, I won't give away too much because it's one of those things like you kind of have to let it just happen as you're watching it. Yeah. But it's like an hour and 45-minute movie. I think King had something similar like that last year where he had like a little film with Carla Gugino, and I can't remember the name of the movie right now. But Joe Hill, of course, did Lock and Key. Yeah. He also has the Hill House imprint that's going on at DC right now. Yeah. And yeah, it was fun. So if you're like us and you don't have HBO, something a little comic book adjacent, check out Into the Long Grass.
Heck yeah.
Tall grass.
Oh, Tall Grass. Sorry, Tall Grass. There
Pull
you
it
go.
together, man.
It's been a rough couple of days.
Apparently.
And I'm not going to pretend on camera that it wasn't. Also, got to point out, it is still Inktober.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, it's Inktober all month long. And the cool thing is, we did a little prompt last week that started. That's going to kind of like sprinkle through the next 31 days.
Absolutely.
And so, cool enough, we got a bunch of submissions already.
Nice.
And also, I just want to give a little shout out to Anthony Valdez, who did this really cool piece. One of the things this week was for Alien, right? For last week was Alien.
That's so
and
good.
so he implemented a bunch of like, Mars Attacks,
A little bit of everyone.
E.T.'s in there. I just noticed that. I didn't notice that before.
Yep.
And Cheech and Chong. So I actually thought that was pretty amusing. I just got why Cheech and Chong's on there, and the subject is Alien. I just figured that out. So,
Ding!
So anyway. It's time for What's the Comic Shops.
Yeah.
Mia's here, and then we might have a little surprise for you afterwards. But she's going to explain to us and show us what's available at your local comic shop this week. And then when we come back, we'll give you some of our picks. Check it out.
Hey Previews World, Mia here with a look at what's at comic shops for the week of October 9th, 2019. And we're just getting started. The world of comics has even more to offer, so stop at a shop already, and you might just find your new favorite thing. See ya!
Thanks, Thea, and that's just a little bit of what's available at your shop this week. Head on over to previewsworld.com/new releases for a full list of what you can get. What you been reading?
there's been a lot of Batman chatter the last couple of days, as you know, Barbara. And I was talking to some creators actually at the convention this past weekend, and I'm a hypocrite because I was like, I'm getting kind of tired of Batman. But my pick this week is a Batman comic. So one of my favorite books is The Authority, and it just so happens that the creative team behind The Authority, Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch, have a Batman book out this week. And it's a 12-part miniseries. I don't know why it's taken Warren Ellis this long to do a Batman book, like at least a series of this caliber.
Right.
Like, it's cool. It's called The Batman's Grave, and yeah, I'm kind of going into it blind. It's about Batman trying to get into the mind of a dead body, which is kind of interesting. And Ellis has a tendency to always gravitate towards detective stories.
Sure.
Like, no matter what he's writing, like you think you're reading a sci-fi book, it becomes a detective story. And so that's why I say, why hasn't he done a Batman story thus far? Right, yeah. Like, I think he's done like little small things, but like, it's a 12-issue miniseries, so it's gonna be going on for 12 months, which means I'm getting a year of Warren Ellis and Brian Hitch on Batman. Like,
Yeah.
money. I'm good.
Very good.
What are you looking forward to this week?
Cobra Kai.
Nice.
So if y'all haven't seen the show yet, and you're more into comic books, here you go.
There
So
you
this
go.
is a continuation of the Karate Kid saga. This is literally called The Karate Kid Saga Continues. And this is Johnny's story, part 1. So you get to see the story of the Karate Kid from Johnny's perspective.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is of
Interesting.
course what the show is as well.
Right.
So yeah, I mean he's telling his side of the story, the way he saw it go down, how he felt as everything was happening, about how he had his girl stolen from him by the new kid, and then he got his butt kicked by the new kid.
Right,
and,
yeah.
and life is hard and the struggle is real.
Yeah, I love it.
But it's illustrated by Kagan McLeod, who also illustrated Infinite Kung Fu, which is actually a personal favorite of mine. We read it as a book for book club at my karate club.
Oh,
not
nice.
my Kung Fu school, excuse me. And he's a great artist.
Okay,
I'm really
nice.
excited. It's really dynamic, really organic,
Yeah.
I love it.
So that means you'll get some good, actual karate kung fu action. So
Yeah.
that's actually pretty good.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome. One thing I'm looking forward to this week, actually, it's technically not a comic book. It's actually more of a little historical text here, actually. It's a book called Stuff Said. And the cool thing about this is that another conversation I had this weekend was look, the relationship between Jack Kirby and Stan Lee, right? It's, people have a lot of opinions about this. They've had a lot of opinions about it for a long time.
Of course.
I've always leaned on the side of the simplest explanation is probably the right one. But at the same time, context matters.
Yes.
And what this book is doing is actually taking their interviews, compiling them, and taking all their interviews over the course of the last several decades, I'm assuming.
Sure.
And kind of letting you come to your own conclusion in terms of when the relationship kind of fell apart, the conversations after that between, not between them, but
Right.
individually, and what they've said about each other in the past. So
Interesting.
it is very fascinating, and I've always been a Stan Lee apologist, and it's not to throw Jack Kirby under the bus
Of
at all,
course,
not at
yeah.
all. But at the same time, I've always kind of felt that people have been a little bit more harsher towards Stan Lee, and I think that it'll be interesting to see. Kirby's always been a little salty, which is understandable.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they talk about each other, in the aftermath of the Silver Age, the Marvel Age of comics. So yeah, very interesting. I'm really big on the history of the comic book industry, and this is something that I think that will be very fascinating for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
definitely check that out if that's your jam.
Very cool, very cool.
What else are you looking forward to?
So I talked about this book when it came out. It's Blossom 666,
Yeah.
and we're now onto a trade. So this is issues 1 through 5, and of course this is from Archie Comics. And it's a pair of seemingly normal twins that, of course, live in Riverdale. And it turns out that they harbor a deep, dark secret. One of them is supposed to be the Antichrist, and both are sort of vying for the title. So nobody in Riverdale is safe.
Nice,
But
nice.
yeah, I mean, I wanted to bring it up because, again, Halloween season,
It is.
appropriate subject matter, here we are, but it's also a really fun book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then definitely part of the Archie horror line, which
Yes.
is continuing to grow.
Yes.
And I think it's really cool too because Cheryl Blossom was ultimately just supposed to be the third girl chasing after Archie,
Yep.
but now it's kind of turned into this whole other thing. And then her brother got into the mix as well.
Yep.
So yeah, no, that's a cool one. I'm actually looking forward to that. Things you guys should look out forward to this week. Big ticket items, right? This probably would have been my pick, but I decided I'm going to be a little bit different, but I'm going to now talk about it extensively. Powers of X #6. It's the final issue. Jonathan Hickman is kind of wrapping up this leg of his X-Men run, because there's another leg that's about to kick off. But he was doing 2 books running parallel to each other, House of X and Powers of 10.
Yep.
And now that House of X ended last week, House of 10, House of X ended last week, it was actually a really good ending.
Cool.
Like, I mean, just like, it was kind of like celebratory of all things mutant. And like by the end of it, I was kind of like, wow, all right, okay. So I'm very curious what he's going to do with this, because this is the book that typically kind of takes place in the future. So I'm expecting things to kind of lean in the direction of where the next run of X-Men books by Hickman are going to go.
Right.
Yeah, so good stuff. I just can't say nearly enough about it. Like, Nia mentioned earlier, she was talking to us earlier, she's heard nothing but good things about it. I know a lot of people have, and it's for good reason.
Absolutely.
Like, this is a book to be excited about, and it's probably one of the we get a lot of event books in comics all the time. This is actually an event book that didn't kind of tout itself as being an event book, which I think is actually awesome.
It
and
helps.
I would like to see companies like kind of try to duplicate going this direction with eventizing comics more and more in the future. So
yeah, having like the entryway
Yeah.
into the next section of what's
Right.
happening, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
Like that, conceptually.
It's a good one. I can't say nearly enough about it. Like, check it out. I'll stop. What else should people look forward to this weekend, Thea?
Spawn
Yes.
301. Here it is. It's time.
It
The
is.
record-breaking book from Todd McFarlane.
That's true.
And yeah, I mean, it's just, it is what it is. It's Spawn. It's 301. It's huge.
No, and like he just got his Guinness Award at New York Comic Con this past weekend.
That he
So
did.
like I know that I think it was Greg Capullo was there and Scott Snyder were there, and Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo was there, and some of the other Spawn artists who have contributed over the years. And yeah, it was like a little event that they had for him, and like it's cool.
It's super cool.
Again, he's an indie creator who got to do something for 300 issues, and like also when you factor into that the mass exodus from Marvel that happened in the 90s that allowed for this opportunity to happen. It's a big win for independent creators.
Absolutely.
Like, I know some people probably like, oh, Spawn's like from Image, and Image is like the #3 company. It's still his baby.
It's definitely his baby.
And like it's his top to bottom. And congratulations, Todd McFarlane. I thought that was cool. And of course, we're going to talk more about New York Comic Con news later in the show. But we do have a contest this week.
We do.
And we're going to throw it up a little bit early this time because it is New York Comic Con related. So what do we have?
So we have a New York Comic Con variant bundle that we're giving away. We don't actually have them to show you physically,
don't.
but we will show you some images at some point. And we want you to comment below on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching, which New York Comic Con comic book announcement are you most excited for? We'll take entries until next week, and one of you could win the bundle.
Cool. And just to clarify, comic book announcements only. Like, I know there's a lot of TV and movie stuff, but we're a comic show. Give us some comic book announcements. What were the ones you were excited for? So, speaking of New York Comic Con, I was there. I mentioned that like about 5 times already. But you know who hasn't mentioned it yet? Anna Mia, and it just so happens she's hanging out with us.
Hey guys.
What's up? Welcome back.
Thanks for having me. This is always fun.
Yeah, no, of course. Now, you got to actually walk the floor. Like, were you tabling at the convention,
No,
or you were
so
just hanging out?
New York and San Diego are my cons where I'm like, I'm just gonna go, be an attendee, have fun. So I got to walk around and go see everything, which was nice to actually get that chance. Well, when you can make it through the crowds.
Right.
You do the I am a salmon and you just go with the flow.
Yeah. No, that's really true. Like, you kind of have to just let the wave take you.
Oh, yeah.
Just like the amount of people. I always find it difficult to believe that New York has less attendance than San Diego. I kind of feel like there's always this like little tug of war for like bragging rights between the two. But maybe it's just because it's New York, it just feels way more condensed.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I feel like they expanded this year. I feel like there was more areas that they were using. So they've really tried to use as much space as they can. Because I think they're still doing construction, right?
Right, no, absolutely.
So so it's kind of bumps while they're making things bigger and expanding, but I'm ready for that year where they open up the big convention center. It's going to be really huge. So
right, because Artist Alley used to be in that little other side of the room. Like, I know they're kind of stuck in the basement now, but it kind of made more of it kind of helped traffic in general, I think, because like everybody wasn't stuck going one way. But I was definitely stuck like a lot of times. I won't say stuck, that's kind of a wrong way to put it. But I was definitely like at my booth for most of the show. But also just like San Diego, there are comics at Comic-Con. Like, you you have the opportunity to like experience comic book stuff, and like you got to see some cool comic stuff, right?
Oh yeah, I definitely stopped by the Dark Horse comic booth because I always like picking up the exclusives and everything.
Oh yeah.
And then I found out that they were having like a thing for people who dressed up as the Umbrella Academy characters, and they had like a secret signing with 2 of the members of cast. And I was just so sad. I was like, I had the sweatshirt on. I was like, Does this
Does this
count?
count?
But no.
And they said no. They turned you away. Wow.
But I still bought like a bunch of their comics,
Cool.
and it was really cool. So I love being able to stop by the publishers' booths because it's like you get all the stuff directly from them and all the stuff that you wouldn't normally see elsewhere, all the exclusives, and all the art.
Right. Did you go to the Funko booth?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I got to go in the Funko booth, and it was amazing and life-changing, and I don't think I'll ever recover from that. That was like my favorite thing ever. Yeah, that was amazing.
I had to ask because I was like, I know that's definitely like your wheelhouse. Like you're all about the Funkos. So,
yeah.
Absolutely. I did get a chance to, I just remember this, I got a chance to go through some back issue bins. Like there's always my one priority. Like I'm always trying to fill gaps in like my comic collection. So I had a chance to kind of go over to the Midtown Comics booth and kind of like rifle through some stuff. And there was a couple other like stores, I think it was JC's. Was another store that I went to, and just like $2 like options, got to fill some gaps, got to get some Uncanny X-Force,
Nice.
Go on the hunt. That's me just like, I'm like, I want my Comic-Con experience to be somewhat pure, so.
Oh no, I love when they have like the old big pages in like the auction houses, and you go and you're like, wow, that was the beginning. Look,
Right. Yeah.
and then you see the price, and you're like,
Right.
all right.
And that's the end.
And I'm gonna walk away now.
Right. And I'm done. But you did mention cosplay earlier, and we actually have a cosplay video. I'm actually really excited about this because we've been wanting to do this for a long time. And so Johnny was nice enough to go around and get some footage of people in cosplay. And we get to see some people in character, which is also pretty hilarious. So check this out, cosplay at New York Comic Con. And then when we come back, we'll have some more stuff for you. Cosplay at New York Comic Con, and I wanted to thank Mia for just stopping by for real quick and just giving us a little introduction to New York Comic Con, basically bringing New York Comic Con to you, minus all the calluses, right? So, and on that note, actually, before I point that out, we're going to have more stuff. Like I mentioned earlier that Natasha did a little tour of New York Comic Con floor. That's on our Facebook page. You can definitely check that out. She did an interview with Diamond Select Toys' Zacho, and they showed us some cool stuff from Gentle Giant and all this other stuff. But on top of that, we're going to have more interviews and more stuff from New York Comic Con.
Sure.
More than likely in the next couple of weeks will be like shit popping up on our YouTube and on this show. So definitely check that out because apparently they got really cool stuff. Like they were telling me about it afterwards, and I was like, this sounds great. I love it. But now it's time for news.
True.
And actually, I also should have pointed this out earlier. If I have not, I don't remember, but I will point it out now. Here's your opportunity. If you didn't get caught up on all the comic news from New York Comic Con to win the prize pack, here's your opportunity to find out. So pay close attention, because Thea is going to give us a rundown of everything that happened in the world of comics in the last 7 days. Here we go.
At the DC Nation panel at New York Comic Con on Friday, Jim Lee and Dan DiDio discussed their current work in developing a definitive DC timeline to help break down the current state of the DC universe for comics going forward in 2020. No images of the timeline were released, however, the Hollywood Reporter article detailed the 4 major milestones that will break up the different eras of DC, starting with the dawn of the heroic age. This era begins with Wonder Woman's introduction to the world of men before World War II. The following era would be titled the Space Age, starting with the coming of Superman. Third would be the Age of Crisis, a time period starting with 1985's pivotal Crisis on Infinite Earths event and spans until 2011's Flashpoint. And finally, the Flashpoint defines the current era of DC continuity, including the New 52 and Rebirth. More details of this redefined timeline will likely become clearer as Doomsday Clock ticks its way to a conclusion in December. For now, fans will have to stay tuned for more details to find out where DC will be going in 2020. Next up, as part of an ongoing expansion into new markets for some of the most iconic comics characters in the world, Archie Comics is rolling out a program of original graphic novels for young readers in 2020. Archie Blue Ribbon, a brand new imprint for standalone young adult titles by some of Archie's brightest talents, will be joined by a line of middle grade books from Little B Books' licensing imprint Buzz Pop. Blue Ribbon's launch titles will be Betty and Veronica, The Bond of Friendship, followed by a new Riverdale tie-in story, Riverdale, The Ties That Bind. Both titles will release in 2020 and are 144 pages. Little B's debut Archie graphic novel will be The Riverdale Diaries, Hello, Betty. To find out more about Archie's new original graphic novels, check out footage from the Archie Comics Forever Celebrating 80 Years panel from New York Comic Con. Dark Horse Comics and Netflix are expanding the world of Stranger Things in the newest Stranger Things comic series, Stranger Things Into the Fire. In Stranger Things Into the Fire, years after escaping Hawkins' lab, 2 of Dr. Brenner's former subjects try to return to their normal lives. Writer Jody Houser, line artist Ryan Kelly, inker LeBeau Underwood, colorist Triona Farrell, and letterer Nate Piekos explore the true effects of Dr. Brenner's meddling experiments. When news reaches them that the lab was shut down, they go on a harrowing search for Nine, a powerful pyrokinetic whose shattered psyche threatens to burn them all to ashes if they can't find her and free her from her own malevolent imagination. The first issue of Stranger Things Into the Fire goes on sale January 8th. And finally, just announced at New York Comic Con, Star Wars #1 launches in January and will explore new territory as it chronicles events set between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, opening the door for exciting new storytelling opportunities and expanding the Star Wars mythos in surprising ways. In the wake of the events following The Empire Strikes Back, it is a dark time for the heroes of the rebellion. The rebel fleet is scattered following a disastrous defeat at the Battle of Hoth, and Han Solo is lost to the bounty hunter Boba Fett after being frozen in carbonite. Now, after narrowly escaping the Dark Lord's clutches, Luke, Princess Leia, Lando Calrissian, the Wookiee Chewbacca, and the droids C-3PO and R2-D2 must fight their way back to the Rebel Alliance, for the fate of the entire galaxy is at stake. But what Leia, Luke, and their band of freedom fighters do not realize is that they've only traded one Imperial trap for another. Enter the cunning and vengeful Imperial Commander Zara, at the helm of the Tarkin's will. Writer Charles Soule and artist Jesus Saiz are taking us all to the galaxy far, far away next year. Stay tuned to PREVIEWSworld for release and pre-order information.
All right. No, we did the news last week that they were talking about the end, like as they, I guess now they're officially segueing from Empire to Return of Jedi, because previous run was New Hope to Empire.
Yep.
So I actually think that's really interesting. Like I'm really glad that they're committing to the timeline of those 3 movies and then filling the gaps in between.
I'm in for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really like that sort of thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. But it's time for Previews Toy Chest. Natasha's here and she's going to show you what's available comic shops this week. And when we come back, we'll have some more for you. Check it out.
Hey Previews World, Natasha here, and I'm going to give you a look at some of the new toys and collectibles in stores today. Here's your Previews Toy Chest for the week of October 9th, 2019. That's not all. Before heading to your local comic shop, be sure to check out PREVIEWSworld.com/new releases. There you'll find a complete rundown of everything a toy collector could possibly want.
And again, that's just a little bit of what's available. If you want to see a full list of what you can get at your shop this week, head on over to PREVIEWSworld.com/toy-chest. I was really liking that advent calendar.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you
Like,
mentioned.
the usual is chocolate, right?
Oh, is that how that works?
The advent calendars
Yeah, I'm not
for
familiar with
no,
this at
yeah,
all.
never
Yeah.
done this.
No,
So
no.
yeah, like, well, for me, I guess at least, family tradition is to get at Christmas, the beginning of December, you get the advent calendar, and it lists all the days until Christmas, and you get a chocolate every day. But this one gives you a little pop every day.
Yeah, that's cool,
I
right?
am here for that. I like chocolate, don't get me wrong, but
Little Marvel
tiny pops, way better,
Way better.
way better. Hey, Mom, if you're watching.
You're right. Pay close attention. Make it happen. We also, speaking of pops, we all popped when we saw the little Star Wars helmet, the Rogue helmet. Yeah, like I think both of us were like, oh, it's got padding and a chin strap.
Right?
Like,
it looks
so-
really legit.
And then we're all going to show up here next week with
Wearing
wearing that.
perfect.
We should do the whole show like that. I wonder if they're still available. It probably costs a grip if they're
That's
like human head
true.
size.
Yeah,
right?
they look really legit.
Yeah, they do.
Anyway, we do not have a toy contest because we have the giveaway for the bundle. But we do want to announce the winner from last week. So our question was, who is the Joker? And our winner is Rob Gorman, who said, the Joker is Batman's greatest foe and one of the greatest villains of all time.
No, like, and you know what? I figured that was like straight and to the point and like, you know, kind of encapsulates a lot. So why the heck not?
Bam.
But we did point out to people last week that we would use any of the answers. Well, not any of the answers anymore. Some of the answers.
More.
To that question
Yes.
on our Social Swamp segment next. So guess what's next? Social Swamp. How about that? Here we go. Here's what you guys think the Joker is. It was bad English, but whatever.
We asked, and you told us, who is the Joker? So, first off, Chase Merriman says Cesar Romero hands down. He is the classic Joker and was amazing at it. He was a creative genius for his time, too. Val said, I really loved when the Joker was Eric Border. The way he befriended the Arkham staff and how he prepared that trap for Batman was just brilliant. It was his most elaborate disguise, and I'm always glad to return to read Snyder Capullo creations. Very good call. Inick Dom said, Joker is the feeling that makes you want to jump to the tracks from the station platform. He's the scratch you mustn't itch, and he's the joke with a redacted punchline. That's really good.
That's a good one, yeah.
That's poetic.
It is. Well
It's
done.
really beautiful.
Well done, Enoch.
And then we have Gabrielle Anderson, who said, for me, Joker is Jack Nicholson. The first Batman story I ever encountered, the first Joker incarnation and movie that made me fall in love with comics. There were many other Jokers after that, both in movies and on paper, but only one of them can be the first one for me.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's some good ones. I was glad. This is actually really what I wanted because we
Yeah.
talked a little bit about this, but for context, like, yeah, going into the Joker movie last week, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of conversation, and I thought it was really telling that the reviews for the movie early on were like, this elevates the comic book genre.
Yes.
They kept saying that about the movie. I kept seeing that in a lot of headlines.
Absolutely.
I even saw it on our website, which I'm talk to Mike about that. Mike, don't do that. That's bad. But I thought it was interesting because it kind of like cemented to me that there really is still a narrow perspective of how people perceive comic books.
Sure.
Like, I think that, like, you know, in general, people kind of like the mainstream, right, kind of still sees them as garbage. Like, I mean, truthfully, like, they don't look at them as art, I should say.
No, they don't look at them as art, and they don't look at them as any sort of intellectual stuff, which, of course, they are both of those things.
They're both of those things, right.
I mean, you can read a book, you can read a comic, they're all the same kind of level of writing.
Yeah.
We're not, you know, it's not all kids' books.
It's not all kids'
Yo.
books, right?
Yeah.
And they're not all superheroes too, which
No,
I think is also the other funny
absolutely
thing
not.
about this.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, there was like Martin Scorsese. Look, I love Martin Scorsese. I love everything Martin Scorsese. I don't care what it is. But Martin Scorsese made a comment this weekend about like Marvel movies, and he made a comment about largely, and actually I'll just read it because I'm probably going to butcher it if I try to paraphrase. But he said that they aren't cinema. And it's not about human beings trying to convey emotional and psychological experiences, which is dead wrong.
Yeah, that's
Like
straight
absolutely
up
wrong, right? And like I think Martin Scorsese is a brilliant human being.
Come on,
But
man.
yeah, like I think that like it speaks like his view on these speaks to a larger issue where I think
Yes.
people just they don't think comic books are art.
They don't.
And I think that one of the things going into the Joker movie was that people kept kind of like trying to they were kind of like breaking the character down to its like most base, like, you know, and like it was like, guys, The Killing Joke came out like 20 years ago.
Right.
Like as comic book fans, we've already moved past like, oh, he's just you know, no shade to Cesar Romero because we had a guy, but he's just like the Cesar Romero character. And he just does like goofy stuff, and like this is like, you know, it's like no, we've gotten past that at this point.
have.
Like we've
We
done a
have.
lot of different things.
Way
This
different.
character's been around for roughly almost 80 years.
Yeah.
Like he's got various, as we saw from the answers, various interpretations that have like unpacked this character that all kind of funnels in the same direction.
Yeah.
But
They're all very different as well.
yeah, the stories have complexity,
Yeah.
and like they've always had complexity, and
course
that's
they have.
been going on since the 40s, truthfully. So, you know, I just want to give a little shine. Yeah, I just want to give a little shine to like the comic book character.
Absolutely.
So, you know, so there you go, Social Swamp. That's my rant. But I'm glad you guys supported me on that, because like if you guys give me crappy answers, then I've been like, ah.
Sad. You let me down, guys, but you didn't.
Right, but you didn't.
did a
So
great
thank you
job.
very much. I appreciate it. But that's almost it for this show. My voice is starting to go finally. New
I
York is
hear that,
catching
yeah.
up to me again.
Get
New
a little
York
gravelly.
never quite goes away.
Yeah.
But one thing I wanted to do before we walk out of here is speaking of comic books being elevated and et cetera, Watchmen, right? Like the TV show's out this week, and it's somewhat related to the to the comics. But Watchmen was one of those books that people often considered a book that elevated the comic book format, right?
Yes.
And it just so happens that Doomsday Clock is in trade paperback officially now. So check out this trailer, and then we come back, we'll say our goodbyes. Here we go.
The most celebrated graphic novel ever, Watchmen. Now the Watchmen characters in the DC universe come together for the first time. DC proudly presents Doomsday Clock. Jeff Johns, Gary Frank,
That was Doomsday Clock from DC Comics, and actually I thought it was really interesting earlier when you were reading about the DCU timeline announcement. They made it very important to, it made it very key that like once Doomsday Clock is over, there's going to be more additions to that timeline to kind of explain things to people.
Yeah.
So something to keep an eye out for, because like that series clearly is going to be like the path ahead, like, you know, in the future issues of DC Comics.
sure.
But that's it for us this week.
It's true.
We normally do a comic shop shout out,
We
but
do.
we're going to do something a little different this week.
Yeah, so this week we're going to actually leave you with photos from New York Comic Con. You took some photos of cosplays,
Yeah.
right? And we asked you who the character is, but we only wanted wrong answers.
Right,
So
yeah.
it's a little bit goofy fun at the end for you
Right,
guys.
right.
But of course, we're going to do a comic shop shout out next week. So let us know what your favorite local comic shop is. Use the hashtag #SupportYourLCS and you could get a feature.
Cool. And that's it for Previews World Weekly this week. Thanks for joining us, guys. I'm one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
And I'm Thea, and we'll see you at the spinner rack.
Thanks for watching Previews World Weekly. If you like the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes.